Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the Windsor Time podcast. I am your host, Noah. As always, I am joined by Ben. And today we are fortunate enough to have another guest, my friend Matt. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. We have a couple of beverages on the table, so let's do a little cheers here, and then
always
let's talk about some watches.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. So we met. Gosh, it's been 2-3
years. Yeah.
It's been a while, and I remember the first thing that stood out, outside of your wonderful personality, is you are the only person I know somewhat well that has Milgauss. So talk to us about
the rare Milgauss. I know. I mean, it's it's a kind of interesting story with this watch because I started out not knowing really anything about watches, and I remember I got out of college. I was working for a new home builder at that time, and I was sitting across the desk with my then boss, and he had this watch, and his wife had gotten it for him for an anniversary gift. And I remember looking at that watch and staring at it thinking, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what that is, but one day I'm going to have that watch. And I just couldn't. I was looking at that, like the lightning bolt and the green glass. It was so beautiful to me. And I've always liked different anyway. And so that was kind of the story behind it, and that stuck with me. I mean, I did not get it for another 10 years. And so it is something that stuck with me. I never wanted to be like just everybody else. And I'm sure people think I'm absolutely crazy that this was my very first one. Yeah. And it was just kind of one of those magical things that I never took my eye off the kind of prize of getting that watch. And thanks to my former boss for turning me on to him.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned it was something you worked up to over almost a decade. Mm-hmm. Were there watches that came before that?
No, actually, no.
Wow. Any childhood watch or anything like that?
Yeah. Even like knock around.
Mickey Mouse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody had kind of like the Mickey Mouse watches. I mean, I always had, my grandfather had a Timex, right? Yeah, my father always wore a Timex. And so I always grew up where I saw people wearing watches. That was just a normal thing. I ran track in college, and so I always had like a little Nike watch, stuff like that. So I've always worn watches. It's actually, the irony about it is it's foreign to me when people don't wear watches. Totally. And we've kind of gone to like a generation where people don't wear watches anymore. And I feel like we're getting back to where people are kind of getting back into watches. Absolutely. But I felt like we went through this phase where everybody wore a watch to then, do you have your phone? No one wears a watch, right? And no one appreciates it. So for me, if I leave the house without a watch on, I feel totally naked, right?
And this could be a whole episode talking about this one thing, right? I think, but I do think it is because we're becoming so digital, we're becoming so non-analog, right? That even, I think subconsciously, we're trying to anchor ourselves to some sort of analog device to just keep ourselves tethered to some sort of reality. Yeah. And I think we're just kind of sort of doing that naturally. But I also think, I hate to say this, I really think the Apple Watch putting something on your wrist on the minds of a lot of people that otherwise would probably not be wearing anything. Yeah. So I think it actually helped this industry.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, because that actually exposed watches and putting them back on people's wrists who said, I have my phone, right? Yeah. But yeah, the Milgauss is super special to me. It's my daily. I wear it pretty much, all the time. And it will always be one of those special pieces there. But just, I still have my father's Timex. I still have my grandfather's Timex, and so it's just one of those special things that you can kind of look back on and just have fond memories of it. And that's what's so great about watches. It's not about what something costs. It's about the kind of memories and the timeless nature of it. And that's kind of what that's drawn me to these type watches.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I know it's so interesting with the Milgauss because it is a Rolex, but it is at the same time, it doesn't have a lot of the marquees or the general kind of design elements.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like an island within the ocean Rolex.
Absolutely. And I know we've talked about several times here in the real estate game, obviously. It's because you are in front of people all the time, you want something that's a little under the radar.
Sure. Yeah.
And not quite as flashy. So I think that is just perfect.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where most people kind of, they know a sub, right? Yeah. They know a GMT, right? Those are like such iconic watches that you just know of. Yeah. And then this kind of flies under the radar. And I kind of like it that way. In a lot of respects, I think this is almost like the redheaded stepchild of the Rolex line,
I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. I think it's definitely like an outlier. Something that's like, you know, the average person, when they think of the word Rolex, that may not be the watch, the iconic watch that comes to mind.
Right.
But then when you get to the collectible level, I mean, you know, I'm just glad it has as long of an arc in the modern version of the Milgauss as it has had. Like, I mean, you said you've seen it, you saw it, and then 10 years later you got it. A lot of watches don't have that type of arc in their collection anymore. And obviously there's vintage Milgauss as well, and the original Milgauss, and potentially changes to Milgauss. We'll see.
I know, we'll see. You know, you never know.
I mean, we've talked about in other episodes before. Yep. The Air King, same case, got the crown guards. You know, that with crown guards. It'd be interesting to see what they do. I feel like every year the rumor is, oh, it's going to get discontinued.
Right.
Every single year, and then it doesn't.
It feels like this is stronger this year than it's going to. This seems something like rolling.
That was one of my predictions in our early prediction episode, and I think if it's going to get, I don't think it gets discontinued. I think it just gets changed. I think it's too, I don't want to say popular piece, because every Rolex is popular, but I think it's one that's just, you know, in its own way so special. I think it gets changed, but we'll find out here shortly, you know.
One thing I always say, whenever we have our meetups, it's always cool where people will gravitate towards this watch, because not many people have really
seen. They don't get to see it in person. Yeah, man. You hear of the legendary Milgauss, actually, and to feel it and feel the weight of it and see the crystal in person. It's just got this whole different sort of dynamic than a stock photo gives you. Yeah, which is, you know, the case with a lot of watches, but especially with that kind of iconic green crystal.
Yeah. Well, isn't it double cased or something?
Yeah, so it has additional cases. Exactly. So throws off the weight a little bit.
Right.
And that is another question. Once again, we could go on and on about this watch, but you know, what will they continue that on with a new version of Milgauss? Will they do an inner case, or are the Rolex anti-magnetic components so good now they don't really need to do that case? Because to thin it out, you would think they need to, you know, reduce the size of that case as well. So remains to be seen.
How have you found those anti-magnetic properties in your day-to-day life?
I mean, in real estate life, it's so critical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely,
you have to have it.
Yeah. Especially going into condos like this. I don't know what I'm going to encounter.
I mean, there's the metal beam there that could be, you know.
You just never know. So clearly it's a tool watch that I use daily.
I can tell.
Yeah.
So I know you've got a pretty healthy mix, I would say, of modern and vintage pieces. You know, where you're at right now. I mean, what's the next piece? What do you have your eye on?
I would say, gosh, I mean, I've always wanted a Daytona, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I've been slowly kind of collecting a GMT collection here.
I do feel like you're kind of the GMT guy.
Yeah, I'm kind of
lean into that a little more. What's in your?
So we have a vintage Coke, right? Which is, I think that's another that fits me of being a little bit different, right, than what everybody has. Obviously, you have some beautiful pieces in the GMT lane as well. Sure. Have a Sprite, you know, courtesy. And that's been, once again, it's different.
It's totally different.
It's totally different. It you know, when that came out, it was like, why did Rolex decide to do this? Everybody's been clamoring for all this other stuff, and they do that, right? Yeah. It's this is a really, really cool watch that's different. I love the coloring on it there. And yes, that's kind of what I've been kind of working my way through in the GMT land there. I will say this one watch that I've always had an affinity for that I would love to find is a root beer. Yeah. I think that is such a
modern or vintage?
Vintage, absolutely. Vintage is a way, in my opinion. Vintage is the way to go, in my opinion, because it strikes at the heart of sort of that old school, the 80s. I mean, this feels like something like just that you would see on like Tom Selleck's wrist, you know. So there's something really cool about it. And it was not a great seller. It was just not really great watch for Rolex.
It's kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to word this right, but it kind of reminds me of like the Sprite, but back then, because it's kind of outlandish. It wasn't like, it was just kind of, they did it, and it's so iconic now. I feel like we use the word iconic like 30 times this episode, but it's such a unique watch, and there's still not much like that in the current collection. There are the modern iterations of it, but they still just are so different, such different animals. You know, it's, you know, back then you didn't have things that got just blown out of proportion and hyped up the way they do now. And it's kind of like you imagine some things in the current collection would be like that if they were in the 80s now, I guess, is my
Well, you didn't have social media blowing stuff up, you know, but root beer seems like it's just something unique, special, classic about it. And I mean, a two-tone Jubilee, my God, it's just...
I did the Jubilee. It's just so beautiful on that one.
Yeah, it's so perfect. And even the new ones are absolutely stunning, but it's just something about that.
Lumber character back then.
Yeah.
What has your ownership experience been like with the Sprite? And I specifically want to talk about whenever you set it, because you have that crown on the opposite side, do you turn it upside down and just try to set it that way? Or are you going opposite hand? Like, how does it feel to set?
I turn it upside down.
I admittedly, the few that I have set for clients, I turn it upside down every time, like, and I feel like a crazy person, but I just like, it's almost, it's so...
It's just, you just kind of have to.
So, yeah.
Have you had anybody out in the wild ask about that watch? Because I feel like because it is such a mainstream thing now, like, it's out there.
Yeah, I've had one person that asked me about how do you like it being just kind of thrown off and opposite, essentially. But it honestly doesn't really bother me, and maybe that's because of my wrist, but it doesn't really, I don't like have this weird thing. I think setting it is the only thing that makes you realize, oh, this is a little bit different. But honestly, day to day, it's fantastic.
It's definitely like a playful watch.
Oh, it's like
from a brand that's not the most playful brand. You know, they're usually pretty like do what they want to do.
Yeah,
it was cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but
so we've talked a little bit about what's on your wrist. Then what do you?
So I am wearing. This is also a playful watch. This is a fun watch. This is the Bell & Ross Nightlum. Reference actually printed right on the dial, so I can read it easily. It is BR03-92. And a really fun watch that is both sporty but just same thing, very different.
Right.
Obviously, you see this watch, it's a Bell & Ross.
Right.
They've got this square case kind of instrumentation piece kind of locked down, but everything on this watch glows if it is, this light green. It's just a fun watch. I love it. The strap's perfect with it. It's kind of this like pseudo suede, very light leather.
Yeah.
And just a watch that I really have a lot of fun with and, don't take too seriously.
Yeah.
It's
well, it looks great with the outfit. I mean, like,
thanks, man.
That's like perfect, right?
Well, and I feel like that's such an iconic case shape for them. They've done so many different variations, but it's just, it's a Bell & Ross whenever you see it.
What I like about this one too is not everyone in the current watch market was probably around when Bell & Ross first kind of came out or was first a big thing, but this is one of the more recent pieces that really feels like an original Bell & Ross launch piece. Not so much the I'm blanking on the brand that they partnered with at the very launch. No, but now I'm killing the episode. But when they actually brought out their square aviation instrumental watches, they had a lot of these just like fun, bold, colorful. They had, teal blue. They had bright orange. A lot of things that really just sort of, this just is reminiscent of that to me and just makes me think of like pure Bell & Ross. And
nice.
Just a cool watch. So
very cool.
Yeah, so it's a great brand. How about you? What do we got?
I have my latest acquisition on it.
Okay.
And there's an interesting story with this. So I'm wearing the Mission to Earth Swatch Omega Moon Swatch. It's not Omega, it is Swatch. I was in Vegas last week. This is my second one. I have the yellow one as well. And
are you gonna collect all of them?
No.
Gotta get the red.
And will you keep up with all of them? Yeah, would you be able to keep up with all of them? They probably will keep bringing out, is my guess.
No, and I mean we could talk about the gold second one, but
sorry.
No, I was in Vegas last week for a work trip, and somebody else had asked me, "Hey, can you go and get one for me?" So I had a very busy schedule, but between two receptions, I was 2 gin and tonics deep.
Clearly,
and it was like, you know what, this is my chance. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So no kidding you, I walked 25 minutes each way to go to the Swatch store. And I was at like Paris or somewhere over there, and it was at the New York hotel.
Okay, something.
Anyway, so I walked down there, and the only one they have left is the Suns. I was like, okay. I already personally have that one, but for my friend, I will get it. So got that one, but the guy was like, "Hey, if you're interested, come back tomorrow. We get them every day." I go, okay. Probably not going to do that. But
wow.
Okay. So I walk back. I go to my other thing. I shoot because I work in marketing and production. Shot like a 6-hour day the next day, and I had another hour and a half break. And I was like, you know what? I'm going back. I'm going for it again. I want one for myself. I've already made a trip for a friend. I want to come back with something. And I've wanted the Jupiter, which is like the tan with the orange hand. So I walked another 25 minutes down there. No gin and tonics this time, just tired after work and jet lagged. And they had this one. I was like, you know what? It's not quite that like Tiffany blue.
I mean, admittedly, I think that's the coolest one because everyone paid attention to which one's Tiffany? The Uranus? Which one's Tiffany blue?
I think so. Well, there's like a blue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was hitting right at the time where everything Tiffany blue was on fire.
Right.
And I think that my take on that is that's maybe the most timeless of all of them at this point, other than the one that looks like
it's cool. And I mean, the ones that look like the actual. Which we'll get into. We have a nice transition here, but the ones that look like actual Speedmasters, I don't like as much because I want some like variety to like and some fun.
I mean, that should be super fun.
It is.
I feel like that's just totally fun. Yeah, I mean, that's just such a fun watch,
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Picked this one up, immediately threw it on an Erica strap because the straps they come on are just trash.
It looks
and that's
good.
Another interesting thing. You're paying $280 for effectively what should be a $50 watch, if we're being honest.
So the MSRP of that strap was essentially what, more or less the value of the watch in a way.
Yeah.
Depending on your perspective.
But it's fun, it's fun from a marketing perspective. I think it is undeniably in the last year the biggest marketing success. Yeah. Because last year it came out before Watches and Wonders.
Yeah, right.
And blew the internet away. Yeah. And then this year they kind of did the weird mission to Moonshine Gold.
Yeah. And you know what? We should talk about that one. But this goes back to what we said at the very beginning of this episode about the Apple Watch and about things being on people's wrists. And honestly, this watch at that price point, but being positioned like a Speedmaster, it really puts that idea of an analog watch on so many other people's minds.
Absolutely.
That it's just definitely a good marketing play by Swatch Group, but also just a fun play. I think it's
and on the
approachable. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fun.
Right. You have the same dimensions as, and we'll talk about it for our shop picks. We have a couple of wonderful Speedmasters down there. You have the same case size, so if you were somebody who was interested in buying, this $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 watch, you can see with something under $300. Hey, do I actually like how this feels from a sizing perspective? Live with it for a few months, and if you do, it's
totally true.
Get real one. But
because I think they're all really, really cool. But obviously iconic. But that's a really just a fun watch.
It'd be interesting to see if they ever did some sort of mashup play there, where they did like you buy this particular limited edition Speedmaster and you get like the analogous like Moon Swatch with it or something for fun or some sort of edition that's collaborative.
Yeah. And the real question is, because this was such a huge commercial success, I think they sell millions of them at this point. Who's the next brand? We're not going to see Rolex, we're not going to see Patek, but AP and G-Shock. G-Shock already does the Casio. What if there was some kind of amalgamation?
It's a good question, but it's like, does another brand have the Swatch Group has the scope of all their brands in their group? Does another brand have that same scope where they are affiliated with another entity that can cross over as easily within their same corporate structure? I don't know.
Doesn't Swatch, do they own Block Pond?
Sounds right. Yep.
But Block Pond does some fun stuff.
How cool would it be if they did a Swatch Block Pond?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. But I don't know that many other brands can really. That's lightning in the bottle there. So that's just a home run and hit, and sometimes you only get one of those, right? Where you like the marketing lines up and the price point lines up. But that seems almost like lightning in the bottle. It was perfect for that watch.
True.
So while we're on the subject of Omegas, Omega Swatch, whatever, we will dive into our shop picks for this week. So I thought it would be fitting, since we talked so much about this watch, that we bring out two real Speedmasters. So we have the current iteration of the Sapphire Sandwich, and then we have the previous iteration of the Hesselite version. Can you really be a watch collector without the Speedmaster at some point? I think
feels like everyone needs some iteration of Speedmaster that speaks to them and their collection. It doesn't mean you should just to do it, but truly take some time and find out, you know, do I want a birthy or speedy that, you know, speaks to me, or do I want the most modern with a really badass bracelet that this thing comes on, or which one works for you?
For me, so I owned the first Omega in space, the slightly smaller, 39.5 millimeter case on leather when this was out, and reason being, you know, it's a very cool bracelet. I know a lot of people like it, but I could never quite get the perfect fit. It's just unfortunate with different people's wrist sizes. It doesn't always work. But with this newer bracelet, I mean, that taper, and we'll get a good shot of it, but you're going from 20 to 16 millimeters, which is more aggressive than you even see on a Rolex. I think Rolex is typically 20 to 17 millimeters or 18 millimeters, something like that. I mean, really just such a fantastic watch. But both of them, I mean, I don't know that you can really go wrong. It's kind of like Porsche 911 or something.
You're not going to go wrong. That is as classic gets. I mean, it's no doubt.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. And then you have, you know, all the different iterations. You've got that watch, which ironically we have that same generation, this newer generation, current generation, with Hezolite crystal and solid case back. So a little more true to the classic speedies in the shop right now as well. Brought this for, you know, comparison's sake, but the movement on that is so beautiful.
As soon as I flipped it over,
it's one of those weird, because if I was looking at the purist in me is like, I want to have the solid case back, you know, first watch on the moon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that generation, to be able to see that movement, there's something special about that too. It's just,
it's gorgeous when
Well, and it's funny. So I just did for my style Instagram, actually the Hezolite version of this watch that's currently available in the shop. And, you know, at the end, I talk about, you know, $1,000 difference. I think you're probably fine with the solid case back. The second I flipped this over, I went, oh, man. I don't know if I still agree with that. And you do get the polished, smaller indices, or not indices, rather, Cinderlink kind of things. But yeah, they're both just Speedmasters, really cool watches.
So. I mean, you really can't be a collector.
No,
with that, I mean, you really. I mean, it's such a fantastic, and the history behind them, is second to none. I mean, it's just it.
It's also, we all know this, but it's probably the truest, purest, wonderful mechanical timepiece you can buy. That's not crazy expensive. You can pick up just the most dialed in, perfect speedy for such a reasonable value, and compared to everything else out there, get so much enjoyability out of it. We've talked about only watches on past episodes. Speedy is a big contender for like that could be your one and only watch if you just had a one watch collection.
Well, you can that's a great thing about this watch, is that it can be your sport watch. You can go diving in it. You can do whatever you want to. It's shallow.
It's 50 meters.
So shallow. You know, you're picking up a kid out.
Go to the moon now.
You go to the moon.
You can punch no water on the moon.
Not diving. My diving is like, hanging out the pool, right? But you can also wear this in the
desk dive.
Desk dive.
But totally works with a tux. In fact, it'd be super cool with
a tux.
You can wear it in a tux just to go swimming with it.
Because then people, they would see you and they'd be like, whoa, this guy's a little bit different. You know?
Okay, so I feel like we've talked about speedies quite a bit. Ben, you also have a chronograph completely different into the spectrum. What do you have for us?
So another chronograph, and another company really known for its chronographs. This is the Breitling Chronomat 44. With the B01 Breitling in-house movement. And this is in solid 18 karat rose gold. Has this super cool red chronograph hand, this kind of gray to brown dial, sunburst dial with black sub dials, and it's on a rubber strap on a gold deployment clasp. So it's got that mix of like Breitling flair, but also, super wearable on a rubber strap, and not like, too much on a bracelet type of thing.
This is a beast. It's a beautiful watch. I mean, it's the weight is unbelievable. Beautiful watch, but also too, I mean, this is so versatile.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do so much with this watch. This is special. Yeah.
And I mean, you're talking about, what other brand could you get a precious metal chronograph for under $20,000?
That watch is, I mean, it holds value, but it's also, a very solid piece of gold, and that chronograph is such a joy to run. I mean, it's just this very instrumental feeling. That's what's so nice about modern Breitling chronographs, and they're all their in-house movements. So these they're not buttery smooth because they're not meant to be. They really feel like an instrument. They feel like you're clinking it into place and you're hitting reset, and it just feels right. And the movement finish is super cool because I think it walks the line between like it's ornate in its very Breitling way, but it's also very like, I don't want to say masculine, but it's just got this tool feel, but it's still beautiful. It's such a cool movement as well.
Absolutely. And kind of, again, differentiating it from things like the Speedmaster and Daytona, something I really love about this piece. I spent some time with it a few weeks ago, and you have the 60-minute bezel on it as well.
Good point. Yeah.
So not only do you get the timing functionality of the chronograph, but if you also just want to casually click it over if you're doing pasta or whatever. So, Matt, I feel like we have asked you a lot of questions. I'm going to dive into a little bit more. You're in the real estate game. You've been in the real estate game for forever.
Mm-hmm.
What parallel do you see when it comes to a financial aspect? Obviously a house is one of the best investments you can make from a personal perspective. Do you feel that also kind of rings true for watches in any way?
I mean, I think it's an asset class.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we see that with so many things. I mean, these are all luxury items, and it's a want item, it's not a need, right? And when you see how these prices have gone up across the board, I mean, these watches have outperformed the S&P over the last couple of years. That's fact, right? Yeah. And I always tell people that, I got into the real estate game and got all my real estate investments straight, and then I can enjoy this kind of stuff.
Sure.
But you're the same way you buy a Rolex or an AP or an Omega, whatever it is, you're buying something that is going to stand the test of time, and you're buying something that is going to pretty much hold its value if I go up in value. And that's Charlotte. And I consider that to be Charlotte real estate. We are a city on the rise. Yeah. We have so much growth in front of us that you're buying something that it's almost a can't miss. And that's the same way with these watches here. And Charlotte has such a bright future, but you're not going to miss with a Rolex. You're not going to miss with so many of these watches there. And there's very few things in this world that you can buy and use and sell for more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And sure, I'm so blessed to be in a place like Charlotte where we don't get many opportunities in real estate to be adults while a city is growing and booming.
That's true. Yeah.
New York, Boston, Philly, DC, these places boomed 100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Charlotte is like, we're on the ground level seeing this stuff transform and morph in front of us. It's a special moment in time that 50 years from now, people won't be able to say that.
That's a real good point. So let's dive into, and I think this will be fun, watches of Charlotte neighborhoods. Okay.
This came out of left field. Okay.
We have our new Speedmaster. Okay. I would say this is the new build in Wesley Heights. This is your $500,000 beautiful thing in a traditional space, right off the cut. Uptown. What's the Uptown watch?
Well,
Uptown condo. You got your penthouse.
I feel like it's Hublot.
Hublot.
Is that the Hublot vibe?
That's the Hublot.
Sorry, I'm not the guest.
No, I know. I mean, I would say that is such a Hublot vibe. This sort of like, hey, a little flashy, different, right? Because that's I think Hublot.
Myers Park. What's the Myers Park watch?
I think Myers Park is Rolex.
Specifically, which Rolex? Is that like the day area?
That's a day. That's day. That's so day. That's so day. That's the banker blue suit and the day. That's what that is, right?
Noda.
Oh wow.
What is Noda? Is Noda an independent? Is Noda Milgauss? Noda could be the Milgauss. It's expensive. And,
I mean, when I am driving through, so I live in Noda, and I feel like, I mean, you go on the corner and there's people selling, molasses, and they're selling like D8, and they're selling hemp, and so that feels like an independent.
Yeah, totally.
That feels like a total independent.
Yeah, is that a Baltic? Maybe like a kind of a Baltic.
It's something in that world.
It's something that
I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's totally different what that would be.
It could be Monta. Monta's an independent. That's stack 2 G's.
Yeah, that feels like Noda. Just something like because they would be like ew.
Yeah,
but they would be like, oh, here's this Monta, right?
Okay, so last neighborhood, your favorite, Camp North End. Camp North End, 2023. What is Camp North End? I'm thinking hidden gem. I was thinking cover sleeper.
Let's do Nomos.
Nomos. Okay, I would say it's very accurate.
That's very Nomos. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a little bit of that hipster, clean, clean hipster. Yeah. Camp North is going to end up being our Brooklyn. Yeah, it's going to be in our Brooklyn. And 5 years from now, people are going to be saying, "Why in the world did I not buy over here?"
Right. Yeah,
and it's over.
Yeah,
But yeah, Nomos, because that's such a cool hip brand and what they do. Yeah, I think that's that Camp North in area.
Gastonia. This is getting big up.
No offense to anyone from Gastonia.
No
offense to anyone from Gastonia. Yeah. And it's booming.
Yeah, no, it's
booming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This would be a really fun thing that could go on all night because there's a lot of areas.
What about like Eastover and South Park, like Foxcroft?
Eastover and South Park is a two-tone Daytona.
Okay,
two-tone Daytona for sure.
I was thinking
Cotswold. That's my neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, you too.
Cotswold.
Yeah,
kind of falls in that same world.
Cotswold's traditional.
Submariner maybe.
Yeah, Submariner. Yeah. I think sub. I think sub. Stainless sub.
What about South End? We didn't touch on South End.
South End.
I don't think we did.
Flashy. It's got to be.
But it's still got a little bit of like. This is a fun game. This is a tough game.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, that's like the Patek Aquanaut. I think that's not.
There's like wealth there, but
but it's younger,
youthful.
I don't want to say it's new money, but it's
youthful.
Youthful, but well to do.
Yeah, it's different than Eastover, right? And it's
Yeah. Okay. Or no, South Carolina. Last one.
No. Fort Mill. I think Fort Mill was
a lot of bang for the buck.
A lot of bang for the buck. I think that might be sort of like Daytay still.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Because it's kind of like, because that's still, it's expensive, it's well to do. Conservative jobs normally.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
We have a friend Stuart down there.
He's got some pretty sick watches.
It can also be a Speedy too.
Yeah.
I see it. To me, it's like a Breitling Navitimer. I don't know why. That's like what Pike could.
I don't know. Yeah.
Just something that kind of pops like, hey.
Yeah, but it's like still kind of conservative in a way, and like not politically, but just like.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, we have mildly offended several neighborhoods.
Hopefully y'all cut that out of the whole.
I think there's parts we can keep on there. Cool deal. Well, where can people find you online? What do you have to plug?
Absolutely. Instagram is always, the best way. matthewsellscharlotte. Also, matthewsellscharlotte.com. That's my website, and you can find us at Compass Real Estate. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to reach out and grab a coffee, talk watches, Porsches and houses. Let's do it.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have you back on soon, I think, to go over your collection. You have some phenomenal pieces. We totally blanked on having you bring some stuff.
Yeah. And you just mentioned Porsches, so that triggered me. So we'll get to that next episode.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. And fashion too. We talked about that too.
We have our Tom Brown on today. So
shout out Tabor. Yeah, shout out Tabor. Yeah. Always Tabor. So yeah.
Cool deal. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
For coming.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you guys as always for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and see you next time.